So if you are the coach, or you have somebody in there filming, and then you're the one leaking that film or that video footage, that's where I have a problem. I think it's just because you don't want to put anybody out on blast. I mean, I have video footage of Kevin Lee knocking out a Russian that I won't say his name, but he fought in the UFC, and he was a name that, like, it would have made news. But that's not what we do. It's not what we're supposed to do.
It's the holidays. You have this huge fight coming up with Francis, but you always give everybody time to get a chat in. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
Yeah, and I wanted to start off with just coaching, man. You've been coaching for so many years now, but recently, over the past few, you've been brought into this spotlight with the fighters you coach. Has it been a whirlwind for yourself handling the media and having the cameras on you all the time?
No, I think it's just part of the process. In a lot of ways, I think you have to understand that it's a give and take. I think you have to put yourself out there at times, but you also have to take the criticisms when it's due as well. So, I mean, it could work both ways, but it definitely is beneficial. I think I've benefited a lot from sponsors and things of that sort by putting yourself out there. But again, it's like, man, you do that, you're going to get criticized for stuff, and you're going to be the target at times as well. So it's a two-way street, but I think it's important to understand that they're both are evident, and they both are very important.
Thick skin, is that something that is a prerequisite for someone that is in the spotlight like that?
Yeah, I think so. I try not to spend a whole lot of time looking at comments or stuff like that, because, to be honest with you, JK, like you and I both know, bro, most of the people are just misinformed, right? Like, they're not really looking and doing the work and understanding what's going on. It's just kind of their opinions on things. And I think if you get caught up in reading a lot of that stuff, then usually what it does is it just makes you hate social media. It makes you hate this job. It puts you in almost in a depressed state. But I think when you're so busy and you don't have time to look at that shit and spend time and energy on what people say or do, it just kind of goes by and you don't even notice it, to be honest with you.
How much of that do you have to deal with in fighters? Because I know fighters, they like to sometimes go deep into these comments, man, into the posts, and start listening to these words that don't really matter to them.
Yeah, I think certain fighters, it does, and I think it hurts, man. Like sometimes, we always looked at it like every time you get a positive affirmation, or somebody says something positive, it has an effect of like ×3, whereas one negative is a ×10. So you can get 3 positive things said about you, but 1 negative, and the 1 negative is going to overtake the 3 positive. So it's like, man, like, just don't let somebody else's perception become your reality. Focus in on what you can control and stay off of that shit. Don't read it. Don't look at it, because no matter what, bro, it doesn't matter. You get 100 things about how great you are, and then you get one dude that's like, man, that guy sucks. And you're like, oh, so it is what it is.
It is, man. And, Xtreme Couture, massive gym. You got fighters coming in and out all the time. How do you keep out the toxic energy, man? Because you've heard a lot of stories, behind the scenes especially, of like fighters coming in and kind of creating problems. How do you handle those situations and keep them from escalating?
I think it kind of starts with your standard and who and what you are as an establishment and as a gym and an institution, So if you set a standard and say, like, look, practice starts at 3:30, but you need to be on the mats and ready to go by 3:15, be prepared, be this, be that. And I think your standard alone will start to weed people out that don't really fit or understand. And, we're a big team gym, and I think a lot of people, like Tyson, I talked to Tyson a lot about this because he's a small gym, small team, and they have more of like a boxing vibe to their gym and their team. They're very close, very tight knit. Whereas having a big gym like ours, like, a lot of people get lost in the shuffle, and you really have to take the time to make sure that you feel like everybody's getting what they need. And furthermore, I feel like by that, they feel like they're accepted and part of that team as well. So if there's things that are coming up, if they're bad energy or bad this or bad that, and they don't fit somehow, some way, like Coach Follis is always telling me that when you set a standard, people will either follow that standard or they'll find their way out. And it's kind of worked out that way. Like, we've had people that really didn't fit, and they, we didn't have to kick them out or anything. It just didn't really work out for them, and they went elsewhere.
Yeah, I've seen that with a few fighters, you know what I mean? Just they go to certain gyms or and they just don't fit in there, and then they go to another one and they fit in. It's, you know, it is what it is. The personalities don't match, or, you know, what happens, right? Um PTSD in combat sports. Do you think, you know, people talk about it enough, or should we talk about more?
Yeah, I think, I think it's something that now that the sport is starting to age, you're going to see more of that in veterans, that are veterans of the sport. And I think CTE and PTSD and all these things, maybe brain trauma and depression, and being out of the athletic spotlight can cause a lot of problems. And then not only that, just like wear and tear on their bodies. How are they feeling? Aches and pains that they deal with on a day to day basis. So yeah, I think all of that's good stuff, to be honest with you. And I think getting it out there, because now, before, like, I'm what am I, 15 years in the sport, and I've seen a lot of good guys in their prime have now since retired, and the Mike Piles and Jay Herons of the world. Like, I get to go to those guys as resources now and try to look at what we can do better for the young guys and coming up.
Definitely. Have you experienced that in any fashion yourself?
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, mine was more like when I got done playing football, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, with the rest of my life, for that matter. But I think the competitive side of what you're brought up in the element of football, or combat sports, or anything that has to do with athleticism, to me, is the camaraderie, is being around like-minded individuals, and everybody's kind of pushing one another to be great. And that's what I found at Xtreme Couture. I found a family. I found something that was bigger and better than me, but I knew I was a part of that family. So I think when you have that group of individuals that you surround yourself with, it really makes you a different person in a lot of ways, man. I feel like, for me, like, our gym has changed people's lives for the better. I'm not even talking about the fighting game. I'm talking about just financially, and giving them peace at what they want to do athletically. But at the same time, like, I look at Taylor Gordado, her life changed over this last year. Uh, Chris Curtis, his life is different. And that to me, as a coach, as a gym, is most important, man, is how are we affecting these people's lives in a positive manner.
Chris Curtis is like the perfect example, man, of someone taking an opportunity and running with it, and multiple times. And he said he went from like $5 to six figures in his bank account, which is, you know, you don't really see that happening in other sports in that short period of time.
Yeah, man, like, his story is so great. He's such a good dude, and I wish there was more we can elaborate on it. Like, people don't really understand, like, the battles that he was going through on a day to day basis. When we lost Kyle Reyes in September, um, I was sitting in the big cage, and it was just like all of us were just kind of in shock. And I was in the big cage, and it was probably about an hour before pro practice, so no one was in there yet. And Chris came rolling in, and very somber mood. And he goes, I think this is it for me, man. Like, I think I'm gonna hang it up, and I want to head back home and be with my son. And everybody was going through it, and everybody was going through the loss of Kyle very differently. But I think it opened a lot of people's eyes about the fragility of life and how quick things can go. And I just said to Chris, I said, hey, bro, like, I understand where you're going, how you feel right now, and what you're going through, but I think that you should at least see it out for the rest of the year. You already have a fight lined up. It was outside of the UFC. There's a couple things that I think we can do, and let's just see this year out. And if you feel the same way come 2022, then I understand. But man, like, if you just put a timeline on it, we got 3 months left. Let's just hit that finish line hard. And sure as shit, man, he got the call. He got the call. And it was a lot of ups and downs. He did. He literally had no. So he signs the fight, Phil Haas, and he weighs in, but doesn't get the fight, right? And then, so a week goes by, and he's at practice, and he's like, man, I thought I was going to get paid something for weighing in. And I was like, you didn't get paid anything for stepping on the scale? He's like, no. So I go, bro, let me call Mick. And I call Mick, and I go, hey, Mick, like, what is the policy on guys weighing in? He goes, he never weighed in. I go, Mick, he did. He weighed in. He cut almost 15 pounds or whatever it was in less than however long. It was a day notice, and he made weight. And Mick goes, oh, I didn't know he stepped on the scale. I'm like, yeah, he weighed in, man. So, God bless Mick. I hung up the phone and Mick texted me back about 10 minutes later. He goes, "Hey, I just sent the kid $5,000." So I was able to come out to practice, and here's a guy who had negative in his bank account. And I go, "Hey, how much you love me?" He goes, "I love you. Why?" And I go, "Mick Maynard just sent you 5 G's." You know what I mean? So you just started to see a little glimmer of hope. Like every little turn of the corner, there was a sign or something came out that just was like, "Yo, bro, just you're on the right track. Just keep pushing forward." And now look at him. He's 2-0 in the UFC, got his first bonus, both underdog fights, the fights he wasn't supposed to win, and now he's sitting pretty.
Definitely. And another guy that I feel like I think he's gonna become a title challenger in 2022 is Manel Kape. Man, he's a guy. He started off his UFC career a couple hiccups, you know what I mean, but now he's found his footing. 2 straight knockouts. He's a special talent. I feel like people don't recognize it yet. What do you think separates him from all the other flyweights right now?
Having Joe Benavidez in the gym for such a long time, I think Joe really raised the bar for that division, especially in our room. And Joe brought a lot of great flyweights in the gym, and I think that kind of like that torch has been passed to Manel and a few of the other guys in the room. He's a guy that I just work ethic really jumps out to me. Like he's never missing practices. He's doing all the right things. He has that like championship mindset when it comes to his body, his mind, his training, and all those things. So, when he started training at Xtreme Couture, he really fit in right away. And, we really took a liking to one another and our styles. And myself and Coach Eddie have been working with him a lot. And man, I really do. I think you're right. And I think the one fight that he has that was a split decision was pretty damn close. So I think once he kind of got his footing in the UFC and knew that he belonged, I think you're right. I think he could be a guy that can contend pretty quick.
And he has that it factor. That's another thing that is different about him. He'll go out there and talk the talk and walk the walk.
And he's finishing fights. He's going out there and putting dudes away. And I think that's the most important thing, especially in the flyweight division where, they were kind of like labeled as not finishers, but they've always been so exciting to watch. You can't say that now. I mean, you got the Kai Kara France kid, and you got these other guys in there that are doing work and finishing fights. So, I'm excited to see what Manel does for his future.
Definitely. Moving on now to the big fight coming up, UFC 270. There's more and more information coming out about Francis and Ciryl being teammates and how they really didn't train that much together, but it seems like the media and the promotion of it is like they were former teammates, that they're close. But is it just being overblown, or does it help? Is it just helping the promotion of the fight?
I think it's just more for the promotion of the fight, but it is like that kind of like, like, oh, we were best friends. Like, no, we weren't. Like, I didn't even know the guy. You know what I mean? Like, and Francis has nothing but respect for Ciryl Gane. Like, there's no problems there whatsoever. But I think the narrative was like these guys were in the weeds together, training with each other every day in and day out, best of friends. He's like, bro, I trained with the guy like 2 or 3 times minimum, and it was like touch sparring, So, and then for me, I have nothing against Fernand and those guys. I think he's a phenomenal coach, and he's putting together such a great roster of fighters over there. But when you leak footage, sparring footage, there's kind of a code. Like I have all this video on here of guys getting knocked out left and right. How many times you've ever seen me post anything with our sparring sessions? There's just kind of a code to that. So when you own the narrative, when you own the video, and you can post whatever you want, there's guys in here that have been knocked out cold, but I can make them look good and eliminate the knockout, or make their sparring sessions look whatever if I wanted to. But when you come into our gym, if we're videotaping you, it's under the impression that it's for coaches' uses only, and that's where it's always stayed. So, I think that as far as the code goes, like, you don't release that kind of stuff, in my opinion.
And especially they manipulated the footage too. It's not like they released all of the footage. And Gado came out and said that was manipulation right there. Like, that's not really everything that happened. That was just part of, just some moments that he had against me. So when you saw the video, what was your reaction before even talking to Francis?
That was my first reaction was, there's a code in MMA and gyms that, like, I don't allow anybody to film in our gym unless you're a coach or I know you. And because you don't want to run into these problems where people are in your gym filming and then leaked footage gets out and this and that. So if you are the coach or you have somebody in there filming and then you're the one leaking that film or that video footage, that's where I have a problem. I think it's just because you don't want to put anybody out on blast. I mean, I have video footage of Kevin Lee knocking out a Russian that I won't say his name, but he fought in the UFC, and he was a name that, like, it would have made news. But that's not what we do. It's not what we're supposed to do. Right. So that was my first instinct. Was like, well, why are they showing sparring footage inside the gym when it's kind of supposed to be sacred? You don't do that. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I know there's more to that story. Francis told me there's a lot more to that story that wasn't shown. And, it is what it is. But I think it makes for a good backstory for sure.
Do you think it's just them trying to play mind games with Francis and particularly just the whole team?
Could be, I really don't know. And I don't know if that's what they're trying to do is just, make him more upset or piss him off. But I assure you it really hasn't, he's pretty mellow dude as it is. So to get him mad is pretty hard. He just kind of laughs a lot of this stuff off. But, I guess we'll see on January 22nd how pissed off he is.
Yeah, definitely. And the MSG footage, that's also something else that they kind of put together. I don't even think it was them, the team. It was kind of like the production. Is that the story right there?
Yeah, man. He was like, bro, we were walking to our seats, and the lady for the UFC is like walking us to our seats, and then like she gets on the phone. She's like, oh, okay, hold on, we're gonna turn around and go back this way. So he goes, it was like right then he goes, it's all felt set up from the start, So he goes, and then when we were walking around the curve, the first person that I see around the curve is Fernand. So he goes, I wasn't going to go over there and say hello to him or shake his hand or give him a hug. So had it been just Ciryl, I would have said hello. I would have shook his hand, but it was Fernand. So that was the first guy I saw, and I moved my eyes a different direction. I just kept walking. It is what it is. So he goes, I wasn't trying to be mean or make it a problem, but he goes, it definitely was set up. He goes, we were walking one direction and they walked us a long way back around the other way. So good on the UFC, man. It was well played for sure.
Yeah. It was a good laugh too. A lot of people enjoyed it. It was entertainment, but at the same time, they should know that it wasn't like what you saw, that footage of just that footage. There's a backstory to it. We've spoken, a few times over the years about Francis and his development. Do you think the mystery, because every fight, it's so fast, so we don't get to see too much of him. So do you think the mystery of the other aspects of his game will be the difference maker in this fight?
It definitely could be. It definitely could be. And I think that, we're going to have to maybe show some of that stuff in this fight, to be quite honest with you. Sitting down and breaking down Ciryl for a while now, I've been watching this guy since the Volkov fight because, he's been on my radar. I think when we were promised John Jones after the Stipe fight, to me was such a iffy scenario. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get from that guy. So I'm thinking ahead and going like, okay, well, what's next? And really, I think Ciryl and Derek Lewis were kind of the guys that were shaping the landscape of the heavyweight division outside of us or Stipe. So I've had my eye on him for a while, and I think that this guy definitely deserves this opportunity of where he's at. He's earned it, and I think some of the things that we've been working on outside of the fights that you've seen, you've seen the KO stuff, but a lot of the things that we've been working on, I think you'll definitely see January 22nd for sure.
What about the mind state of Francis? We've seen him elevate on the mental side too. He did have that off fight with Derek Lewis, and then he came back and overcame that. Since then, what have you seen from him mentally?
Man, he's very just mellow, he's not a lot of stuff really bothers him in the ways that I think maybe used to bother him in the past. I feel like he's very much at peace where he's at in his career, in his life, with his family. Even like with the contract stuff, like I'd asked him a couple of days ago, like, hey, are you good with all this stuff? Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. He goes, I could sign this deal, but it's not what I want. And, he doesn't have any hatred towards the UFC. I think that they're making that a big deal as well. He's just very ho-hum about everything and just going about the process. And, he said something to me a few days ago that really resonated. He's like, man, I'm healthy. I have money. I have a roof over my head. And me and you maybe forget about that, where he comes from. His perspective is very different from ours. you know, and I think he's very happy where he's at right now, and he's enjoying the process.
I put out a tweet a couple days ago about Francis, and I said, if the UFC and him part ways, I think Francis will be fine. I said he could go to boxing, man. I could see him being a big star in boxing. Hey, I got attacked like no other. I'm getting DMs just saying like, you're a piece of shit, you're a dumbass, like for real. Like I was like, what? I'm just saying something good about a fighter. Like why would that be so negative?
It's not. And you're right. I think no matter what he decides to do, he has star power anywhere he goes, you know, and he's going to be fine whatever he does. But when him and I were talking about this whole situation, he said point blank, he goes, I want to be in the UFC. I want to be in the UFC. He just needs to get the things figured out logistically with his contract and everything else. But he loves where he's at. He loves being able to fight for the biggest organization in the world. And we all do as well, because I think as a coaching staff, as fighters, we all understand that they are the cream of the crop when it comes to talent and competition. So, you know, why go anywhere else? But he does have opportunities to make money elsewhere. I prefer it, hopefully, that it works out for the UFC and we stay there and we can have a long title run.
The main event, man, UFC 270, Francis and Ciryl finally meet. Man, I think it is the biggest heavyweight championship bout, you know, so far in the history of the UFC. Just the way that the trajectory of these guys and the skill set of these guys. What type of fight can fans expect in this main event?
Yeah, man, I try to sit around and picture and envision, you know, what I think it's going to look like as well, you know, good, bad, every scenario that might come to my head, and like things we have to change or fix or whatever else. And I've thought of that many, many times. And every time I do, I watch this guy go in there and just totally decimate somebody, you know, and I think it's nice in a lot of ways as a coach. I scenario problem solve and do all these things in my head, but I don't try to put it out to the fighter because I don't want to put more information in their head that they need to know. So if something presents itself, then I want to be able to make sure I had that in my head, that equation already fixed or figured out. So, you know, I've done that quite a few times, and then I just watch this man go in there and just totally knock somebody out cold. And I'm like, well, damn, I spent a lot of work doing nothing, you know. But yeah, man, I think you're gonna expect fireworks in that fight, and I'm excited for both camps, man. I think this is a great fight, and to be honest with you, if you know, if Francis does stay in the UFC and everything works out as planned, I think this fight will happen probably 3 times in this guy's career.